0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. To this is a different reaction version podcast of the Phixated podcast. I am your host, coming to you from the West Coast, Mike Azalita, joined by my ever gracious co-host Regzy Boo. Regs, here we are, 3,000 miles away from you, further than we usually are when we do this type of thing.
There's been a couple of these episodes where it's been a little weird. Either I've been on my phone in a dark parking lot talking about a Phillies playoff, something, Phillies World Series win. I think I took one from like a Florida hotel balcony when I was on vacation with my family. There's been a couple of these, but that's all right. Listen, we do it out of love.
This one is different because I am on my phone. I had my one laptop, my Mac with me, but for some reason it's just trying to update Discord as we're, I'm trying to record this thing so Ray can go to bed. It's 10 o'clock almost 10:30 back home, and I'm sitting here 7:30 all geared up eating my, airport cookies. Wanting to talk a reaction to a couple of things that have been going on since Monday. Monday was a big day in Philadelphia sport. We went the whole spectrum of emotions on Monday morning all the way through the afternoon. I let me tell you how I came to understanding what was happening on Monday. I took off from Harrisburg to Dallas, Fort Worth at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I boarded the plane and everything was normal, right? And I land in Dallas and I turn off airplane mode, and my phone just erupts with text messages. I mean, usually I get like 5 or 6 when I land. I had like 30 messages that came through. Reg's was right at the top, and it was just 2 immediate tweets back to back. And I think it was something like, what a span of emotions, or something like that you put underneath it. And the first one was like the announcement that Zach Wheeler would be signing an extension with the Phillies. Numbers were unknown. The second one was that Jason Kelce had announced a press conference that would be held at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So obviously, I feel the emotions right away, and I'm trying to talk myself every which way out of Jason Kelce retiring any way I can, while celebrating the fact that Zach Wheeler signed an extension that we have talked about on the show for a solid month and a half now, if not longer. We've talked about the possibility of a Zach Wheeler extension. Was that a fair assessment of your text messages?
Yeah, the text message said, "What a day today is, LOL." But it was just, you're right. It was the back-to-back tweets that came out. I wasn't sure. It was like, and then it was people following up with the press conference and people following up with timing of everything. And it's like, man, this is going to be a day.
And it was.
It was.
And we're gonna recap that day. It is Wednesday now. We've had some time to process it. We talked about, trying to do this earlier, but I get so jet lagged coming across the West Coast. I'm finally feeling like I'm normal West Coast right now, and not like I'm back home. So we found a time to do it, and we're just going to quickly react to both things. And we're going to start with Zach Wheeler. As I mentioned, Regs, I think we've talked about this as far back as after they lost, after Game 7, that Zach Wheeler being re-signed is just enormous because, in my opinion, and I think if you asked a lot of baseball-minded people, Zach Wheeler is, in my opinion, the second best pitcher in baseball. I think it's Garrett Cole and Zach Wheeler is next to that conversation. There are many other talented guys, right? Guys who belong in that conversation. Spencer Strider clearly belongs in that conversation, along with a bunch of others that I'm just not, bringing to mind right now. But Zach Wheeler is a guy who came to Philadelphia on a deal that was easily the the best deal in baseball history in terms of a pitcher. When you look back on it, what they paid him since 2020 to be here and what he's done, it's easily the best pitching
It's
contract in
literally
baseball.
what Jason Stark called it. He had a whole article comparing Cole's contract, Scherzer's contract, Verlander's contract, but Scherzer with the Nationals, Verlander with the Tigers, Cole with the Yankees, and then Wheelers. And he literally went through it, and with an interview with Garrett Cole, like commentating on each pitcher, which is pretty cool. But it was a really interesting article, and he rated Zach Wheeler's deal with the Phillies the greatest pitching contract ever.
I mean, I think I said it on the show, I don't know, at some point this offseason, that we've just gotten away with highway robbery with the deal. You know, this guy has pitched way above. His performance has been way beyond not just what we expected, but what they were paying him.
Mm-hmm.
And he just seemingly gets better every year. There have not been moments where I don't think I've regretted the contract for a moment since he's come to Philadelphia.
Yeah.
He's been a dominant regular season pitcher. He's been a dominant postseason pitcher. I loved during the press conference that Dave Dombrowski kind of chuckled and said the physical was better this time around than it was when they originally signed it. When I wasn't. You know, he talked about in the draft room when he got drafted, he was 6th overall that year by the Giants, and he talked about how the best pitching scout that he's ever worked with, and I forget the gentleman's name that he mentioned, but Dombrowski said that this guy looked at the rest of the room and said, this Wheeler kid is going to be an absolute star. And look, the Mets situation didn't work out, and he came to Philly, and he's been an absolute star. So the deal is 3 years extension. So this year not included.
Right.
3 years after this year, $126 million. Which, look, is $42 million a year and one of the largest in baseball history for a pitcher. I think it might be the largest extension.
It's the largest extension. History. Yep.
Okay. So, you know, I know on the foreground, it's like, holy moly, that is just so much money, and it's so much tied into he and Nola now. But there's a reason for that. And if everything works out in the Phillies' favor, they're going to have plenty of young arms to supplement payroll anyway. So it's not the end of the world. But I think what really stands out to me, I haven't done the math, I'd have to go back, but if you look at what he's going to get AAV-wise throughout the whole contract, I think it's just over, if not on the dot, $30 million per year AAV over the course of the entire longevity of his career. And, you know, say they win one, maybe 2 World Series over the next 4 years, even just one. Arguably, he becomes in the conversation of one of the greatest Philly starters ever.
Yeah.
Look, if they win one with him, think about the other greats in Philly's history. Carlton won one. Cole won one. Halladay won none. He was here for a short time, but didn't win any. A lot of great pitchers that came through this organization never won. Kurt Schilling didn't win one in Philly. Yeah. Right? Like there are pitchers on top of pitchers, right? Zach Wheeler will have been here at the end of his contract for 7 seasons, which is pretty long for one guy. Yeah. You know, in baseball these days. And if he wins a World Series and appears in 5 postseasons, right? He becomes one of the best Phillies pitchers ever. Am I wrong?
No, I don't think so at all. I think just based on it's one of those things that I think everyone else is going to look at it and be like, 42 million for Zach Wheeler is ridiculous. But that's because they don't know Zach Wheeler. Like, they either don't pay attention to the NL East or their favorite teams in a different division. So you can understand why Zach Wheeler's like not on the cover of MLB The Show. Like he's not Garrett Cole or Verlander or Scherzer. He's not outspoken, like Scherzer. He's not, he's just not the same kind of guy. But when you look at all the statistics, he's not out of the top 5 pitchers in all of baseball conversation. He's just not. By whatever measurement you want to use, like this guy is an inarguable top 5 pitcher in baseball. And yeah, the 42 is probably shocking to a lot of Phillies fans because this is, again, the first time we're paying a pitcher this kind of money. But also you just have to think of it as like, when have these guys are few and far between, these true aces that you can give the ball to every 5th day and almost not be worried about how they are going to pitch. And then they translate that into the playoffs. Like those guys don't exist very often. And that's why there's a select few of them. And that's why they get paid a lot of money for a long time. And yeah, you can say he doesn't have the Cy Youngs or maybe the championships like Scherzer and Verlander. But it's just one of those things. It's like when you have one of these guys, you can't just let him go. You can't just let Zach Wheeler become a free agent. And the big thing that we talk about a lot is that he's not the same age as Verlander and Scherzer. Like I know he's up there. He turns 34.
This is the year, yeah.
In May or something like that.
I can't remember if it's the year 33 or year 34. But either way,
I think he turns 34. Verlander and Scherzer signed $43 million contracts when they were 38 and 37. Like Wheeler's going to be done. He's going to be retired by the time that age comes around.
Yeah, he talks about that.
Oh yeah. And
longevity matters.
I think you putting it in the context of the entire contract makes so much sense because like we are making up for some payments. We are making up some money that this guy is owed by this team. Right. But when you look at it like that, for how good he's been over these, however, it'll be, like you said, 7 or 8 years, paying $30 million for that guy is nothing.
Yeah.
It's nothing. Yeah. For a guy that's been that good.
To $32 million a year. I think it's like, because I think the first contract was $110 million. The extension's $126 million. So that's like 32 a year, 32.4 a year,
still,
something like that.
Like
it's crazy to think about what he's done for them.
Yeah.
Like you said, no Cy Young, which again, like, okay, he's been in the conversation. No World Series yet. But when they get in the postseason, he's been the best postseason pitcher of the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Like, if you would ask any manager in baseball, who would you want on the mound these last 2 postseasons, when you think about all the teams that appeared, who would you want? I think Zach Wheeler would be number 1 or 2 in every single one of those conversations, because he's just, every time he gets the ball, Riggs, I think you and I kind of like our initial response is, well, we got wheels tonight.
Right.
Like there was a point after they won game 1 against the Dodgers, or against the Rays, or the Astros, in last 2 years ago, the World Series, where they won the Rangers start, and we were like, we might come out with 2. Yeah. We might come out 2-0 because we got wheels tomorrow. That's how confident we were in Zach Wheeler, and it carried over into this year. I mean, the dude took the ball, and it was just like game 1 against the Marlins. He cruised through freaking 7 without one issue.
Yeah.
It's just, we are so fortunate to have Zach Wheeler, this version of Zach Wheeler, and someone who I think is just going to get better the next couple of years. One other piece to this that I think is important, and then I want you to kind of read off something that was posted, and a comparison that was posted.
Mm-hmm.
But One other thing that I think is really important in this, and I've talked about it before, what he's going to mean to the young pitchers coming up the next 3 years. You've got three right-handed arms that could come up at any time. Two that I think will likely make positive impacts on the organization, Nick Gable and Andrew Painter.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the really positive thing about he and Painter are the injuries they went through at
Yeah,
young ages,
for sure.
Tommy John part, right? He'll be able to guide him into, look, this is how I changed what
Yeah.
I did. Because Andrew Painter is very much what Zach Wheeler was. He throws hard, has a ton of really great stuff. But I think what Zach Wheeler can do for him is help him learn to pitch, because that's what's made Wheeler so good.
Mm-hmm.
He used to be a thrower, and now he's just a pitcher.
Yeah.
So I'm thrilled
Yeah.
beyond belief. But just the comparison that I sent to you before the show, because I couldn't pull it up on my phone since I'm recording on that.
Yeah.
Just fill the people in on what basically we're talking about here.
So Joe Edinger tweeted out Zach Wheeler with the Phillies so far versus Roy Halladay's Phillies career. These are overall stats. So Wheeler has a greater WAR, 19.7 compared to 16.2. Halladay has 2 more games started. Almost 70 plus innings, which is kind of crazy in only 2 games, a difference. But again, Roy Halladay was an absolute horse. So that is what it is. Wow, Roy Halladay, 55 and 29. Mother of God. Wheeler still 43 and 25. 55 and 29 is absurd. ERA, Wheeler has a 3.06, Halladay 3.25. ERA plus, which I don't know what that means, but I'm sure you could tell the people. Wheeler has 137, Halladay has 122. And then strikeouts, Wheeler has 53 more than Halladay. K percentage, Wheeler has about 5% more K percentage than Halladay. Wheeler has 2 less walks, which is kind of incredible considering how little times Roy Halladay walked people.
Yeah.
And then walk percentage, Halladay is at a 4.8, Wheeler's at a 5.3.
Okay. So the ERA plus, just to clarify, it's basically an adjusted version. So it takes into account like factors that are out of pitcher's control, like the opponent. So like they pitch against the Braves more than other teams do. It also
Gotcha.
factors in ballpark. So like Citizens Bank Park compared to some of your bigger stadiums like Citi Field or like Truist Park. So it takes those things into account. That's the only difference between that and ERA.
Yeah. But again, it's just one of those things where you don't think of Wheeler, like if you talk about Roy Halladay, and again, rightly so, he's in this upper echelon of pitchers. But when you actually look at it, in their time with the Phillies, Wheeler is pitching just as well as Roy Halladay. And it's like, that's one of those things where you almost can't, you would never really know unless you looked it up or someone pointed it out to you. But like, that's how well Wheeler has been pitching for us.
Yeah. And I think what the thing that I wanted to sort of mention through this is I want to make sure that we're clear in saying like, oh, we're not saying Zach Wheeler is Roy Halladay or,
No.
That's not what we're trying to say. What we're saying is this is how good Roy Halladay was as a Philly in his short time with the organization. Zach Wheeler is already eclipsing some of the things that he did. And he's a year away from eclipsing like a win total, right? He's a really good year away from separating himself in ERA. He's been that good since he's come here.
Yeah.
Roy Halladay was one of the most dominant pitchers I've ever watched before. Ever. Period. End of story. I think that comparison is a testament to what Zach Wheeler has done since he's come here in his first 3 seasons. And I've said it multiple times on the show tonight, but I'm going to say it again. I just think it's going to get better. I think he's aging so well, and he couldn't say enough about the training staff in Philadelphia and what they've meant to him and helped him to accomplish, and what Caleb's done for him. And so this is huge for the organization. We're going to have this conversation down the road, but it puts them over the tax next year. So, they've got 1 year where they're going to be over the tax because of Castellanos and Schwarber coming off, like a year later, whatever it is. So I think next year they go all in. I think you're going to see them blow past the tax, because once you go past that third line, it's just about money. Like, you get your pick pushed back, and it's just about money at that point, which it doesn't feel like Middleton gives a crap about. So I fully into this move. Really made me a believer in they're just going to go for it the following year in terms of the luxury tax. They're going to go a lot of 1 year deal type of things where they throw a lot of money at guys, and then a long-term deal that I'll save for a later show that I think they're going to go all in on. But it's just another testament to what this organization is trying to do right now, and the ownership that they have. They're in it to win this whole thing.
And I think the last thing that I think is interesting is that the length of it. Like, I think the 3 years was an important point, not only for Wheeler, but the Phillies were also agreeable to it. And as Zach said, it's because he doesn't want to allow himself to, like, be done playing baseball when it's over. Like, when his arm is gone and he isn't the same pitcher that he wants himself to be remembered as. So, like, these number of years was very thought out and purposeful by Zach, like what he was looking for. And he wants to maximize them. Like, he wants to leave baseball like the same guy he is right now. He doesn't want to leave when like it's gone and he's a fourth starter and like barely hanging on to whatever legacy he might have put together. He wants to go out on top. And everything he's saying is like I'm not taking this money and being complacent. Like, that's not how this is going to go. I'm going to get better. I'm going to keep doing everything I can to help this team win and win a championship. And I think also when you talked about the younger guys, I think it can't be like understated what he does for Aaron Nola, even like not just the younger, like the really young guys. Like, Nola continues to talk about their relationship and what Zach like brings out of him with his work ethic and the amount of time he puts into staying healthy and all those things. So it can't be understated just what he does for Aaron too, who's obviously going to be around for quite a while.
Yeah. I think that's a great point, and one to sort of wrap up with, which is, the years matter a lot. I think he's smart enough to know what this window is. They've got 4, maybe 5 years where this thing can still happen before they have to sort of retool the roster a little bit. And in those 4 years, there's a lot of potential to win 1, maybe 2 championships with what they have on the field. And he's smart to that, and I think you're right. Like, he's really mindful of like, I don't want to be pitching when I'm not good anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know what I've got left, and I'm going to take that and run when I'm 37 years old.
Yep.
And he's got 3 girls himself, so as we've learned about professional athletes in Philadelphia, that number sort of means I want to spend more time with them.
Yeah.
As we found out from the other piece of news on Monday. So, you good with Wheeler?
Yeah. Very
Great
happy he's
job,
back.
Phil.
Yeah. Very happy he's
Great
back.
job.
Never want to see that guy pitch for anybody else.
No, so happy, because if he does find himself in Cooperstown one day, he'll be going in as a Philly. I think that's pretty safe to assume.
Yeah.
All right. So, the other piece of news. You have been steadfast in your belief this was happening from that loss to the Bucks, whereas I tried to find every possible reason that he would not do it.
Yep.
And even up until the press conference, I was still texting you saying, you know what? he's going to
Yeah.
say that this is his last
Yep.
year, and he's going to come back for one more, and yeah. Um, but it happened, and Jason Kelce officially announced his retirement on Monday in one of the most heartfelt retirement speeches I think I've ever watched in my entire life. I I I don't know, Regs. I don't know how we want to do this. I think we've talked enough about what he means to the team and what he's meant to Philly. I think I just wanted to kind of focus on some of the stuff that he talked about,
Yeah.
and I think we'll get to the what's the plan now conversation when we record on Sunday night, when we do our free agency preview. But like for tonight, I think it's just let's react to what he talked about and how we saw again like the human side of Jason Kelce. I don't know who said it, but someone tweeted like Philadelphia is the city that America was born in. It's seen founding fathers, politicians, speeches upon speeches, um, museums upon museums. And the two best speeches ever given in a city that America was built on were given by the center of his football team. And Rex, I gotta agree. We talk about the parade speech, which in his retirement speech he said was not mine; it was Philadelphia's. And you look at what he just did this week, and some of the writers were saying, "My gosh, I'm jealous of how well he wrote that." And Kylie said, "Yeah, he's been working on it for 4 years.
Yeah,
It better
right.
be."
Right.
Um, but man, it was just so well done. Like every inch of it, from the beginning when it looked like it sounded like a poem,
Mm-hmm.
um, that he read, and to the 12 memories he talked about, to the coaches that he thanked, to the diversity in the locker room, which was probably my favorite part, to his brother. Oh my gosh, like the whole Travis
Yeah.
part. Like you have brothers, I have a brother. Like that was so unbelievably powerful. And then to watch him choke out the words, "I'm announcing my retirement."
Yeah.
That dude, I told you, I was flying. I had just taken off and had turned it on like the old free Wi-Fi, transferred from the Twitter to the Wi-Fi. To hear him talk about Kylie and then say all of this to announce my retirement. And I looked out the window and tears in my eyes, and I saw the freaking Cowboys stadium and wanted to vomit. There are moments in life that you remember forever because they're great, and then there are moments in life that you remember forever because they jab you twice or three times. And this was like three swift kicks in the nuts. To hear him say that, to watch him cry, to be crying myself, and then to look out the freaking window and see AT&T Stadium right beneath.
Yeah, that's tough.
Um, but so let me give like a couple of highlights, and then you give a couple of highlights from what he said. And I think in perfect Jason Kelce fashion, he tied the emotion to the humor to the connectedness of the city, right? Um, obviously the the parts where he talked about living as the underdog and then translating it out in the end to "I'm overrated. I've always been the underdog and I wish I was still was." But connecting that back to 2000s, almost, beginning of 2017, 2016, whatever it was, when basically the whole city wanted him traded. And I won't lie to you, I was probably in that conversation. And people will ask me constantly, what is it about Jason Kelce? People that aren't Philly fans.
Yeah.
What is it about Jason Kelce? Like, why do you guys love him so much? Is it the speech? It's got to be the speech. He's a lineman. Like, who cares about linemen? But it's not. It's everything he said in that moment. Like, you want to know what it's like to play in Philadelphia? Listen to his retirement speech. we just got done hearing our own captain, Darius Slay, sort of like talk about how negative the fan base can be. And then Jason Kelce comes out and says, people think they're negative, but they just tell you when you suck, plain and simple. And they did that to me, and it made me want to be better. That was a highlight for me because you know how much I like to defend our fan base,
Yeah.
at least the smart people in our fan base. Um, the whole memory thing, like that 12, he talked about like 12 memories. When he talked about Andy Reid's son dying and how he's never felt more connected to, a group of men in that moment than he did in that moment. I remember being at training camp that week before it happened, and then finding out like 2 days later that it happened, and to hear him talk about that was so powerful.
Yeah.
As something that he'll remember forever, because I think he did a beautiful job of like turning that really terrible moment into something that football brings, that like camaraderie, right? Um, of course, I love the Snow Bowl, like him talking about how it was just
Yeah.
like so much fun to, play in the snow like you were a kid again. Um, the Super Bowl stuff, like the Nick Foles comment. Did you see that he like reached out to Nick and his wife for permission to
Yeah.
say that?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
It's hilarious.
It's so funny. And then I'll say one more and turn it over to you. When he talks about the diversity of the locker room, like so beautifully put, just the way that he connected all of those people in so many different ways. And I actually wondered since then, did he reach out to Darren Sproles to ask if he could make fun of his
Yeah,
height?
right.
It was so perfectly 6'8" Jordan Mailata in the same
Yeah.
locker room as sports, but
Right.
Sproles. But he that was also beautifully done and said, like talking about the diversity of locker room and how it helped him to learn about people and backgrounds and stories, and um it just so amazing. What about his speech like stuck out to you or resonated with you?
Yeah, I think in the first 2 seconds, like when he sat down, first of all, being in the cut off shirt and like a pair of sweatpants was the best. And then as soon as he sits down and opens the notes app on his phone, he like starts losing it. And I'm like, this is gonna be tough. I was just like sitting at my computer with it on my phone, trying to work / pay attention. And I was just like, man, this is gonna be tough. I think I appreciated that, just as we've seen Jason be, he was authentic and his speech reflected that. Like he wanted to get through all these points. Like you've heard so much about how he would give anybody the time of day that asked for it. So to go back and like thank high school coaches and high school strength coaches and like all this stuff, it just
His high school band teacher.
yeah, right, yeah. It's just like perfectly aligned with everything that you hear about him. And then I think the biggest thing that sticks out for me is just there's such a different connection with athletes who get Philadelphia and get what it means to play for a professional team in Philadelphia. And we've said this hundreds of times between ourselves, thousands probably not on this podcast, hundreds of times on this podcast. You don't have to be the greatest player ever. You don't have to be a number one pick. You don't have to be an ace. You don't have to be. When all that blends together, it's pretty cool. A la like Bryce Harper. When you can be the face of baseball and still get what it means to play in Philadelphia, like it's pretty special. But there's nothing that hits the sweet spot like this guy who was a 6th round pick and undersized at center, being in this city, almost, on the verge of being traded or, let go from the team, fights back to have his best years after the age of 30, which no one in football does. No one in football gets better after they're 30 years old. And Kelce did. And then to just understand what it means, like to play here and all that is just it's again, it's the reason why he'll go down with guys like Utley, you know, Rollins, like Iverson, like guys who are just iconic players and will always be Dawkins, you know, guys who are iconic and will never die in this city. They just won't. I just appreciated his acknowledgement of that. I appreciated that it kind of like he kind of said it out loud almost. You can almost imagine him saying it like, this is for the guys I'm leaving in that locker room. Like, listen, man, we all get it. People are going to boo you and you just kind of got to get over it. Like, they're not booing you for no reason. Like, when you suck and you don't play well, they're going to boo you. And that's how it goes. Like, you just got to be willing to be okay with it and be better and work harder. And then again, like all the little things, the brother thing was obviously great. The stuff about his wife was awesome. And then just to end it would be like, that's all I got. And just get up and give a few people some hugs and walk away in his cut, black t-shirt. Yeah, it was like you. I was emotional at parts, laughing at parts. It was a huge bummer because we would love to see him stick around and like be in our lives as much as possible. But you also just feel really happy for him that, like, I think when he said like what him and Kylie have built, like, you've given me a life, you know, that gives me more fulfillment off the field than it does on it. Like, that's all you hope for the guy, that he can be happy with his decision and he goes on, you know, to have a great life with his kids and his wife and, you know, gets to relax a little bit and just do what he wants to do.
Yeah, it's interesting because he said the best parts of his career were with Kylie at his side, and it couldn't be more accurate. Like, he became better when he met her. There was also a moment where he talked directly to Nick.
Yeah.
And he talks about the flower, which we've talked about in the show. It's been made fun of on, across this when the Eagles got good.
Yeah.
It was after the flower thing. And I love that he did that. I love that he said to Nick, the flowers get knocked back, but the roots remain. And he talked about it on their podcast today and said, I have no doubt this team's going to be special next year. I hate that it ended this way for me and that I don't get to be there. I'll just get to experience it in a different way and I'll still enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about Jason Kelce is no matter what he does next, he's going to be great at it.
Yeah.
Whether it's, Thursday Night Football or whether he's like a speecher guy on one of the Sunday shows or crap, man, I could see him being a perfect fit on like Good Morning America, but the thing about Jason Kelce, no matter what he does next, he will only ever be referred to as Philadelphia Eagles Hall of Famer, period, end of story. Like, the Hall of Fame tweeted after he announced it, like, now that Jason Kelce has officially retired, July of 2029 is relevant or something like that.
Right.
Like, I was like, yeah, like it is. It's relevant. And you were going to have Philadelphia Eagles fans showing up in droves to Canton, Ohio in 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is. Like, droves. They thought the Dawkins crowd was big.
Yeah.
Buckle up. Because that place is going to be swarming with Philadelphia sports, with Philadelphia Eagle fans that weekend. Might as well not even induct anybody else because it's just going to be a freaking nightmare of Kelly Green and Midnight Green for 3 days. And just EAGLES chants.
Yeah, right. Hopefully no Cowboys are going in at the same time.
Yeah, we'd have to. I mean, obviously, it could be a guy 5 years from now that's been retired 8 years, right? Gosh, yeah, hopefully not. Hopefully we can avoid it. Um, there was one other thing I'm drawing a blank on now. Oh, yeah, this wasn't during his press conference, but and I'm sure most of you at this point have heard this story. I sent it to Regs last night, and it didn't come out until yesterday.
Yeah.
But the athletic trainer for the Eagles, uh, who has been there since Jason was a rookie,
Mm-hmm.
and has literally wrapped his ankles for every game, basically his entire career. I think a few this year he didn't because of his chemo,
Right.
um, but could not travel with the team to Tampa because of having to receive treatment for his cancer. Um, so when Jason told him he was retiring, he was devastated because, and as he put it, because I was not able to wrap his ankle for his tape his ankle for the last game. And look, for someone who's not a sportsman, Regs,
Oh
someone who
yeah.
doesn't
This
get
is
that,
pointless.
they're gonna laugh at it, smirk at it. What a weird thing to want to
Yeah.
do. Like who wants to a grown man's
Right.
like stanky ass feet, right? Um, but as two guys again who have played sports and when you have a connection with the person who's doing that, like my high school trainer, I absolutely loved him. And we did bond over like the stretching before the game and if he wasn't there to do it, it felt very weird to me. And I can't imagine going 13 years with the same person doing it and then they're not there. That means just as much to
Yeah.
Jason as it does to the man doing it, right? Um, but to wrap this story up, Jason asked him to tape his ankles for his retirement press conference. And I think for me, when I go back to that question that people have asked me millions of times since the speech, which is, he's a football center, right? Like he shouldn't be in the media. He should just be blocking. Like who really? Why do you guys care about him so much? Like he's just the center, and the speech is the only reason you love him. No, it's the stuff like that makes us love him. In his most emotional moment, his most challenging moment, the moment that's supposed to be about him, he was thinking about somebody else. He made it about somebody else. This guy has raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for the Eagles Autism Awareness Foundation on his own with his event. He gives his time in the summer, in his off season. It's not during the season. It's not, oh, well, we're playing right now, so we can do an event and go bowling or whatever after a game. No, he takes a weekend and goes to the shore and basically without security,
Yeah.
bark him. Like it's him, his brother, and Jordan Milan.
Yeah.
And he tends door so that he can raise money for a charity. Right? Like this is a guy who walks through parking lots at opposing fans' fields to see his brother play and chugs beer with them. And anybody who stops him on the street, he takes a photo with him. He's never too big for the moment or for the person. He's a leader. He's accountable. He's vulnerable. He's a human. He humanizes himself more than any Philadelphia athlete that I've ever been able to watch.
Yeah.
Dawkins always seemed larger than life.
Yeah. Sure.
He's been my favorite Eagle forever, and I think Jason Kelce has surpassed him because Jason never, like, I can sit here and say Jason because I feel like he's somebody that I know. I've never met the guy, I've never spoken to the person, but because he puts himself out there in such a way, and he's so like invested in other people, he humanizes himself, and that's why. So for people who don't get it, and who don't think he should be that because of he's a center and he shouldn't be wanting to be in the media and all this. I don't think Jason ever wanted it. I just think because he's such a good person that it came to him, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Well, yeah, it's the same thing with like the podcast. It's like he admitted like he did it just to spend more time with his brother during the season and be able to talk. And like, of course, yeah. And of course it did because they're both charismatic and good at it and have a great relationship. And the back and forth is always hilarious. And that's how it goes. Like, but.
And they're just good dudes.
Right. But like he's admitted, like I did it Travis is the one who's out there more, hosting SNL, all that stuff. He's like, I did it so I could talk to my brother more during the season.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, he's just such a human being. And one of the things that I don't think it's going to hit us, right? I don't think it'll hit us during training camp. I don't think it'll hit us during preseason. I think the first time we're all going to really, holy crap, is when they line up week one
Yeah.
in, wherever the hell they're going. Brazil? Is that where they're going? Brazil?
Is that week 1 or week 2?
Week one is out of the country.
Oh, yeah. So there you go.
When they line up for the first time and 62 is not in the middle, that's going to be so weird.
Yeah. And then even weirder when
Like,
they're at home and it happens and he's in like a suite. He's in the suite with Jeffrey Lurie.
it's going to be weird.
Yeah.
It's going to be weird.
Yeah.
And look, we're probably not going to have it. Like, I think Cam Jurgens is going to be tremendous. I do. I absolutely do. I know people are like, oh, he wasn't good these last 2 years. Cam Jurgens was really good for a dude who's never played guard before.
Right. Yeah.
And he's a tremendous center.
Yeah.
Like, handpicked by Jason Kelce,
Right.
by the way.
From a national
point where
championship winning college football program.
No, he went to Wisconsin, I think.
Wasn't Jurgens from Alabama? Am I mixing him up with
No,
Dickerson?
Dickerson.
I'm mixing him up with Dickerson. Sorry.
But I might be wrong with where he went to school. I think it was Wisconsin, Nebraska.
There you go.
Nebraska. But this year, Jason Kelce apologized to Cam Jurgens for coming back, and has said that the reason he apologized is because Cam Jurgens was ready to start this year as the center for the Philadelphia Eagles. So it's not about Cam Jurgens, right? Like, it's not about the drop off in talent. I think what's going to be, I should say, there's a drop off in talent.
Sure.
Jason Kelce's a Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to quickly learn, Cam Jurgens is still really freaking good. It's, can he stay healthy? Is he going to start every game? Because we never had to worry about Kelce starting a game. It didn't matter what was hurt. He played with all of it.
Yep.
He played with all of it. So end of the day, man, like, it is difficult to come to grips with. The way he expressed it, explained it, it was perfectly said.
Yeah.
I'm so happy for him that, he's finally able to accept this as, what it is. He would say he wasn't at the top of his game. I think we all know he wasn't the same guy anymore.
Yeah.
He was still playing at a level where he was a top 3 center in football.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even now, like, I think maybe 1 or 2 guys that I can think of off the top of my head were better than him. But he was easily in that top 3 at 35 years old.
Yeah.
And that's just insane to consider. So we're sad, but I think we will be able to look back and just appreciate 62 for literally everything that he has done for the organization, and just be proud that we get to say he was an Eagle and will forever be an Eagle.
Yeah. I think that's the cool part is and of course I know you remember, and I'm sure the folks that are listening to as well, but like seeing Chase Utley and Jimmy Rollins like in an LA Dodgers uniform never sat right with me. Like seeing Victorino in a Red Sox uniform never sat right with me. Like those kind of things are, even where'd Dawkins go after? He went to Denver, right, for a year or two. None of that sits right. Like when you got a guy who spent his entire career with you and never put on another jersey. Like it just, again, all the other things that we've talked about add to just who Jason was, but like that is like the cherry on top of the cake, that like he did not put on any other jersey but ours. And he will go into Canton with that jersey on, and there's no debate about like, should he be this one or this one? Like, when did he get all his accolades? Like, nope. Drafted, retired Eagle. Like that's what it is. And it just adds to the legacy of him.
What is more likely for him to wear to his Hall of Fame speech? The cutoff shirt, the underdog mask, or the mummer's outfit?
Mummer's outfit is probably leading the pack.
Okay.
For the Hall of Fame, he'll dress up.
Well,
For the Hall of Fame, he'll dress up more than the cutoff because it's like outside and all these things. And he's got to wear the jacket, so I don't think he'll wear the cutoff under the jacket.
I really want the hungry dogs run faster.
He might have like a New Heights T-shirt on underneath it.
Or no one likes us. We don't care.
Yeah,
like,
right.
That's
I can sure see that plus the mummer's hat. Like I can see both being in play.
Yeah. One last thing, and then I have a really bold prediction about Jason Kelce. But one more thing from his speech that resonated, just his relationship with Stout. Like, my gosh, just everything he said about Jeff Stoutland was, and he quoted him multiple times throughout. Like it was like the theme of his speech was Jeff Stoutland quotes. Like every section he wrapped up with a Jeff Stoutland quote.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just shows what Stout meant to him, and Stout has been very vocal since the retirement, in tweets and interviews, and saying like what Jason meant to him.
Yeah.
So yeah, just unbelievable guy all around. Here's my, I guess it's not super bold, but I'm putting the chances percentage-wise at 99.8, we'll say, that there's a mini passing of the torch on March 28th when Jason Kelce throws out the first pitch on opening day to Bryce Harper.
That'd be pretty good.
That is my, I guess not super bold prediction. It makes too much sense.
It does make a lot of sense.
To have Jason Kelce throw out the first pitch of the Phillies season.
Yeah.
Barely a month after he announces his retirement.
Yeah.
And this city is rallying around his baseball team. And when you think about the way he described the Philadelphia athlete that matters and the ones that fans embrace, who better than Bryce Harper?
Yeah.
It is the perfect passing of the torch. You have him throw out the first pitch to Bryce. Bryce catches it. They meet between home plate and the mound. Jason raises Bryce's hand. The city goes nuts. Bryce Harper is the new favorite son in Philadelphia. Because I think they're, over the last few years, we never did our rankings. We had talked about doing our rankings of the athletes. And I would have had Jason Kelce number one. I don't think there would have been a conversation for me. I think he would have been number one and Bryce would have been number two.
Mm-hmm.
And, now it's, if someone's going to name the next guy.
Oh, yeah.
It's, for me, I think it's Bryce. So we'll see. I don't know who else can throw out the first pitch. They usually do somebody who's made an impact over the last year or the last few months when the Phillies ended. And, that like the year that
Kelce would be perfect. Yeah.
The World Series, it was Doug. And then last year it was, right. So like, who makes sense this year? Jason Kelce.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think you'll have to twist his arm.
I don't think. Again, he's around. He lives around there, so like he's not going anywhere.
Yeah. No, you don't have to twist his arm to throw out the first pitch. He'll probably chug a beer after it.
Yeah, he'll probably have it in his hand.
He'll probably beat the fanatic up too.
It's just something.
He's perfect. So, all right. Well, hey, thanks for jumping in with us tonight, everyone. We look forward to this week. We will do a free agency preview for the Eagles. I'm going to do 5 moves. I might do 6 because I've been playing with one extra. So probably 6 moves that I think the Eagles need to make in free agency before the draft, because plenty of things can happen after the draft. We're just going to talk about what 6 things should they do before April 24th or 25th, whatever it may be. So we'll take a look at that and do a little bit of Philly something or other. That's our bold prediction show for the Phillies. So a lot of looking forward between both. So we'll have bold predictions for the Phils and a preview for the draft. It'll be this weekend. That we'll record that probably Sunday night. It'll be ready for you on Monday. So thanks for coming to our reaction pod, and we will be back with you this weekend, and look forward to talking to you. Until then, be good to yourself, be good to others. We love you guys. Thanks so much for listening. And one more time, this one is specifically for Jason Kelce. Thank you, and go Birds.
Thank you, Jason.
Oh my God! Deep to right field, way up there and way out of here.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.